Ding. Hi. Say something, guys.
Hi.
Here we go. We're actually running. So, episode 364 of the UK's number one show we've been broadcast from the UK is, of course, the UK Vape Show. Mr. Sidebottom, due to time constraints, couldn't make it in. However, we do have one of our special guests, which is Mr. John Dunne, director of UKVIA.
Willing victim.
Ready for a fight. Also joining us is, of course, Mr. Adam from What's That Behind You?
Some pictures.
Some pictures. And, of course, Aidan from Little Bro Vape Reviews. We're going to just jump straight into this. Straight into it, because we've only got John for just over an hour. So, before we get into the nitty-gritty, no doubt, John, you've seen what happened during the budget.
Straight in with a killer blow. Go on.
The sad thing is, I knew 3 days ago what he was going to say as well, which was really annoying. Absolute clusterfuck, to put it mildly.
Nah, that's not.
We also had a meeting today with HMRC, which was very interesting. So the team that's supposedly going to implement this, it's abundantly clear that this is a Rishi Sunak vanity project. It's got nothing to do with any sense. It's got nothing to do with science. It's got nothing to do with anything other than a cash grab and Mumsnet, and appealing to that crowd. It smacks of desperation from a government that frankly is in free fall. But the interesting thing is, and I use the word government very loosely here, there is a handful of people in this government that are pushing this agenda. There's quite a few that are against it. And this is why it's going to be very interesting if this bill ever comes to Parliament. And my sources are telling me it could be quite a while before it sees the light of day. We'll just have to wait and see. But the good thing is, it's not probably going to be this government that will implement this tax.
It won't be.
I don't think the government may be even in power to get through the 13-week consultation, let alone anything else. But the interesting thing that came out of the meeting today with the HMRC guys is that while the structure of it they cannot change, we have to lobby differently for that. They've been told by the boss what it's going to look like. Now they have to try and figure out how to implement it. It was abundantly clear this morning that they haven't got a clue.
How does that not surprise me?
Yeah, we talked about things like, people making it themselves, and how are you going to tax that? Are you going to send hit squads into, garden sheds and garages around the country? So they didn't have an answer for that one. Very, very limited understanding of how much liquid people go through. The Chancellor is under this illusion that people go through, one bottle of 10 mil a week, and it's going to cost them about 70 quid a year. Yeah, it's not going to. But they're basing this information on an Ipsos survey that they did. I think it was like 2,000 smokers and 1,200 vapors. I can guarantee you the question they probably asked is, how many disposable devices do you get through a week? Somebody probably said about 5. They go, 5 by 2 mil, that's 10 ml a week.
Yeah.
Happy days.
The majority, sorry, John.
4 or 5 quid, But, as we pointed out, the fact that they're targeting nicotine strength levels, the ones they're targeting the most are newer switchers, because they're the ones that are going to use the highest nic.
The highest level, yeah.
So it's going to discourage them. You're going to have, situations where, people are going to choose a lower strength nicotine because it's cheaper. It's going to fail for them because it's not the strength they need at that particular time. And it's really going to also hurt those that buy cheaper liquids, the 1 pound bottles, for instance, because their product is going to skyrocket by hundreds of percent, into relations to what they're paying. Whereas those that are paying 4 or 5 quid at the moment for, a 10 ml bottle are going to see a modest increase in comparison. So it's just absolutely asinine. The other interesting thing is the tax is going to be implemented at the time of importation, time of manufacture. So you're going to see potentially a lot of manufacturers going to the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they have to pay the tax as they produce it, not as they sell it, their cash flow is going to be absolutely insane. So that's another thing that we brought up today. We talked about, will this product be allowed to be tax deferred by putting it into some type of bonded warehouse? They're like, oh, well, we want to limit that, as much as possible. So it's like, yeah, you want the tax straight away. They couldn't care less how they do it. So there's all of these things that they're banding around, but it's very, very clear to me that they have got very little understanding of it. So we'll have to help guide them through it. But the good thing is, outside of the consultation, they said they're going to hold roundtables with industry. They're quite willing, like they did today, getting us around a call to try and help guide them at least on how best to implement a really shitty.
So they are actually listening.
Surprisingly, because we reached out to them just as the budget was announced. And surprisingly, they got back to us within a few hours to say, yeah, let's set up a call tomorrow.
Right.
Now, the only thing they didn't do, we wanted to have, good few of our members on there so they could ask questions. The meeting was limited to 20 minutes.
Ooh.
And we were allowed to have 3 people from their side, 4 from ours. So we had Dan Marchand on as online. We had Doug Mutter on for stores.
VPZ.
We had Robert on for compliance, and myself and Graham, who runs our government affairs engagement. So that was it from our side, and they had the 3 people from their side. But they're all civil servants. They're doing what they're told to do.
Yeah.
So when did you start getting sort of a sniff? Obviously, you spent a lot of time in Parliament or around these people. When did you start getting a sniff that this sort of tax was coming in?
About 2 to 3 weeks ago. We started getting intelligence back from different sources. And the problem with the intelligence gathering we have on all of this is we do get conflicting reports, especially around the bill. But with the tax thing, for the last 2 weeks, we were getting a consistent, this is what we've seen. We've seen a document that says X. So the October 2026 date, that came out very early, the implementation date. So that was a little bit of a relief for me, because I'm like, right, they're chasing a headline at the budget, and then they're kicking it as far down the road as they can get it. Or they've absolutely no idea how to implement this. So again, they're just kicking it down the road and probably into Labour's camp. But it was about probably a week ago when all of the ridiculous details of it were coming out. And it was only that morning when the Sunday Times actually ran their story. It was exactly the same information that I'd gotten 2 days previous.
That's when it went public. Yeah.
So we knew that was what was going. But it was interesting. Like I sent Vic a picture. I was doing I was in Avapo in one of the stores doing a live interview or a pre-recorded interview for Channel 5 News, and they literally had their phone out trying to follow it. And it was like, yeah, well, here's what he's going to say. This is what they're going to do, and it's going to be this. And like, how do you know? I said, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
So we knew more than they did as we were doing the interview. But it was the other interesting thing is usually when something like that happens, the press go nuts. So we had a lot of press activity before it and just before the budget. There was very little said afterwards in the media.
I noticed that too.
It was just like a dead subject for them. It was like, oh, October 2026. Oh, who cares?
Who cares? Exactly. Yeah.
And I was interesting. I was looking at a YouGov survey today that came out, and it was all about the budget and what they thought of it. I think it was 4% of the respondents said that the budget would make them more likely to vote for Conservative. The rest said, no, it's making the situation worse. You know, but this is the problem we deal with. And I think this is the frustration that, you know, people who are watching your show get, right? Because they think it's easy. They think, oh, well, listen, we've got science on our side. We've got facts. We've got figures. We've got everything, right? These guys couldn't care less about that. Rishi Sunak wants his legacy program. He thought he could...
The tobacco-free generation thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he thought he could hide behind New Zealand. You know, oh, well, New Zealand's doing it. We're going to follow suit. And then New Zealand pulled out of it with the change of government there. Now he's buggered. He's on his own. He's the only person in the world that thinks, you know, a system where you're going to have a 35-year-old, you know, or a 34-year-old asking a 35-year-old to go buy him cigarettes in the near future is a world that's going to work, you know. And it's the same with vaping. Nothing that they're doing at the moment is going to solve youth vaping. Not a thing. You know, everything that we've suggested to the government that would make a change, they've gone la 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 la. Don't want to know. You know, you saw the licensing framework that we launched in Parliament. It went down very well with the MPs that were there, the members of the House of Lords. I've never seen a trading standards officer hug a report in their life, but he was loving it, bar a few tweaks.
Right.
And interestingly enough, 2 days later, our trading standards partnership gets attacked by the Department of Health because we're touching some nerves that they don't like.
Right.
Because the government doesn't want to listen to sensible solutions. It wants to listen to whatever Rishi Sunak is telling them to do. And it's as simple as that. And that's why it makes our job so difficult, because we're trying to fight nonsensical decisions. And then we're trying to rally those people who think they're nonsensical decisions in government to go and stir stuff with the boss.
It's very similar to the original TPD, isn't it? It's all based on, one, the wrong information, and
totally
two,
wrong information.
Yeah, and two, the old facts. And you think if the majority of customers, I work in a vape shop, and the majority of customers that come in, even if you talk about minimum spend, you're looking at 3-10 mils a week, and that's someone who's just your average user.
Yep.
But they don't. They're not necessarily listening to the people. They think, and it leads on to a question that we've got very, very shortly. They think that everyone, like you say, disposables, 5 disposables a week. That's 2 mil of liquid. That's 10. That's a 10 mil. And I think I should deserve a round of applause then, because I did some quick maths.
Quick maths, none like trees.
But it's all based on misinformation. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you before we get into the questions, and before like all of chat just absolutely go wild, because I am seeing a little bit. For the people that don't know what UKVIA's sort of set out standard is for, because obviously a lot of frustration comes, and people who don't understand will always choose a figurehead to go against. So.
Yeah. Well, let me kind of explain what UKVIA is and how we work, right? First of all, a lot of people are under the assumption that we're an organization that represents both consumers and the industry, right? We're not. And there's a specific reason why we're not, because in politics, consumer organizations and trade bodies have to keep a distance from each other. The reason they do that is because, say NNA, for instance, we've worked with NNA for quite some time. But if NNA put a submission in and we're, say, for instance, caught to be funding them in some way, then their credibility is shot as a consumer voice. So we work with all of these guys in the background, but they have to do their consumer thing. We have to do our industry thing. But it's not that our members don't care about the vapors. I can guarantee you they do. 100%. Our role as an association is to try with all of our ability to make sure that we do the best to ensure that the vape industry is seen in the best light, that as many politicians understand that vaping is a good thing despite what they see in the media, to challenge what's said in the media. And you've seen a lot of my interviews, they don't like me at all.
True, they don't. Yeah.
And
true.
I do get quite a bit of abuse from it, but I don't care. You know, I believe in what we're doing. I believe in this industry. You know, both of my parents died from lung cancer, and I was a 3-pack-a-day smoker. So this is very, very personal for me. And this is why I get annoyed when people attack the UKVIA, because I do take it very personally. The UKVIA is a non-profit organization. It does not make a profit at all. It's owned by its members. So, you know, when people look at the organization from the outside, they don't understand that there's 106 companies, everything from a single shop in Scotland all the way through to, you know, multinational companies, all have a say in how the association is run and what we do, what we spend our money on, etc. So a lot of people don't understand that about the association. They just see, you know, from an external standpoint, what's going on. Another thing I get some criticism about, or I've seen some criticism about, is, you know, we just see John flying all over the place doing X, Y, and Z, right? I presume that people think that that is being funded by UKVIA. Absolutely not. I am as cheap as it comes when it comes to spending UKVIA money. So any show that I visit, any show that I talk at, they fund my trip there, whether it be flight, hotel, or whatever, as much as possible, because we have a limited budget that's paid for by membership fees. We don't get funding from anywhere else. So that has to be stretched as much as possible.
So I'm gonna to give Adam, because you're only going to be on for another 40-50 minutes, John. So get the questions ready, Adam.
I'll stay as long as I can be.
So I'm gonna cut in it. So you're a non-prof.
Yes.
Now, one of the videos, and we're going to touch on this later on, probably when you were flying back from the US, and I was giving it on YouTube.
I have watched it.
You've got 49 full members. I'm not going to include the 30.
We have 36 full members. We got 42 logos.
Oh, right. So
the logos are different because some of those companies have two or three companies or 2 or 3 brands. So
they're umbrella.
Companies' logos.
There's actually 49. I counted them earlier.
Yeah. So I'll tell you straight, because we're.
So I'm guessing all of that money is basically going to lobbying.
The vast majority of it is.
I sort of come up with a rough figure. The annual was about £650,000.
I wish it was.
The annual per year is 10,500, isn't it?
I'll tell you exactly what it is, because I don't hide anything. It's all on.
Oh no, that's fine.
It's about, our budget is probably close to 450,000 is the budget. Give or take 5 or 10 grand here and there.
Yeah.
So that's gone up in the last 2 or 3 years, because when I became, or when they made me Director General, we were at 22 members. I've now got that to 106. And my goal is to try and get as many companies on board as possible, which is why when we started, right, there was 12 companies, and the cost of running it was 120 grand, right? That was what the agency was quoting us to run it. So that's where the 10 grand came from, was like, all right, there's 12 companies, it's 120 grand, it's 10 grand each. That hasn't changed until last year. We put it up by 500 quid.
To get a little bit extra, right? Yeah.
We haven't put it up in about 6.5 years.
Yeah.
But we've opened it up with other types of memberships, because one of the things that I could see as the association was growing was that smaller players weren't being encouraged to join. So I said, right, what's the bare minimum we can run for, say, a guy with 1 to 3 stores? And we came up with the £60 a month fee, or 600 quid a year if you pay by the year. So anybody that's got up to 3 stores can join for that amount of money and have their say and be part of the organization. But it is very tough to get retailers to join. Very, very tough.
That's 600 per annum, and then you have a business classified for 1,100, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah. So
then you've got the associates at 5,250, and then full members at 10,500.
Correct. And the main people who have a decision making say in the association are the full members. I think we get about 34 of those. And they're the ones that can sit on that have a right to sit on all of our committees and things like that. But we do bring in members from the lower levels into those committees if they've got experience, for instance, in certain topics. But they're not members. The committee can invite them in to speak and have their say and things like that, because the goal is not to exclude people. The goal is to try and push the agenda forward with the expertise we've got within the association. But that's how we operate.
So just going, not because we're at the beginning of the year now, right? So
I'll add one more point. I'm contracted to work for the association 12 days a month. I do about 20.
You do. You practically work the entire month.
Yeah, but I'm only paid for 12 days a month. Just to put that point in, if you think I'm making a shitload of money from it.
So, right, just to put things into perspective, of the budget that came in for UKVIA for 2023, what percentage was used for lobbying?
Probably 90%.
Fuck, right.
And I'll give you an idea, Vic. If you want to put on an event in Parliament, right, where you get MPs around and
to invite the MPs in for a
you're looking at 10
a cheese party.
Yeah, you're looking at 10 to 15 grand cost to do that.
You're joking?
Fucking hell!
What's that paying for?
Pardon?
What's actually paying for?
Having a room in Parliament and being able to have the MPs there.
We're already paying the fuckers their wages.
At very expensive wine and cheese.
It's almost like paying for a cameo video.
It is, yeah. Absolutely. And the other interesting thing is, like, we could probably get sponsorship for it if we wanted.
You probably
could.
But
the MPs can't. You have to get an MP to sponsor the event. They don't like sponsoring an event that's tied to a commercial operation.
Right.
So we have to pay for that out of our funds. We can't go to a member and say, listen, can you cough up 10 grand, 15 grand to pay for this? And they stick a banner up and everybody's happy. It doesn't happen like that. Another thing that will blow your mind is we did a print run a couple of years ago. It was Facts Not Fiction in the Times and things like that. Because as an association, we were able to push the boundaries and say we're not promoting a brand, therefore you can't ban us from the print media.
True.
Yeah, that one-page ad in the Times was £60,000.
Yeah.
We did an economic impact report last year or the year before now. The time's just flying by. That was £74,000 for that economic impact report, so that we could show MPs a document that was done by the CEBR to say this is the benefit of vaping to the industry. But 75 grand that cost us. So you can see it doesn't take an awful lot.
It doesn't take much to
whack out that.
And that's a really good thing, John, because to be fair, when we go back to Vic's video, this is how much is coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we being asked for? Why is normal Joe Blogs being asked for money?
Yeah, that was from Arcus compliance side. Yeah.
So,
but still, when we can all tarnish with the same brush when you're playing ignorant.
Right, I know Sid's not here, but let me explain why that's happening as it is, right? So I was in the States at the show when this was discussed. Arcus came to the association and said, listen, we're thinking of doing this idea. We've talked to a lawyer, or we want to get a lawyer involved. And we said, right, go for it. Now, Robert, on his own, went out and talked to a number of companies, both in the association and outside of the association. Those individuals got together and said, we don't want this to be tied to any organization. We want it to be bipartisan, right? So that's why you don't see IBVTA's logo on there. You don't see UKVIA's. There's members in there that don't believe in associations but want to fund it or whatever. So that's why Robert is doing that as that group. It doesn't mean we don't support them. It doesn't mean we don't agree with them, but they're setting the rules of this, not us.
Yeah, they're separate. It's Arcus compliance is separate. Yeah. We know what you mean.
So the guys that are funding that, which are mostly larger companies, are setting the parameters of what they want to do with that program. Now, it's designed to try and get the government to the table. That's what it's designed to do. It's not going to change anything, but hopefully it will get the government to the table. It's the same with some of the other groups that are out there, with the petition and things like that.
Yeah.
So I met with those guys this week. Offered all the help we can get. But one of the things I have to be very careful of as an association is who we're affiliated with. And the problem is, some of these groups have companies that I know are operating illegally. They have retailers on there that I know are selling illegal products, things like that, which is really hard for Emil to try and manage. But I have to be very careful of what I can do with them publicly, because the fact of the matter is, I get up on the television and they just point and go, "Oh, UKVIA's, endorsing this or funding this, and look at all of these illegal people that we know, blah blah blah." I'm buggered if that happens. Right?
Yeah.
So this is why we and I have to be very careful of what I say, what I do, and who I associate with.
Obviously, we did a show on February the 14th, and obviously listening to what you just said now, I can understand a little bit why it wasn't there. It was like, obviously we were pushing about the petition, weren't we, about the flavours?
We were.
I didn't see anything come up on your Twitter or anything like that. I also, it seemed to that everything went very, very quiet from the 14th up until probably, I think I wrote down about the 4th of March, really. It was very quiet on your side. What was the reasons for that? Is it...
Right. So let me kind of give you a prefix of why I'm quiet sometimes, right? You guys want to know everything that I'm doing. I don't want everybody to know everything that I'm doing, and everybody that I'm talking to are trying to manipulate, right? It's very frustrating, but I get it, okay? The other thing is that a lot of this is all about timing. And this is what I had a chat with Emil about. They're not bad ideas. They're just not the right time. And the flavor one is a good example, right? We know that if we want to get people rallied up, they're good for a few weeks, then they get bored and they drop off, right? It's really hard to keep that momentum up. So you have to save that energy for when it can actually work. So, to do a petition to have a debate on flavors, right? We know what the result of that's going to be. The department will come back and say, we are bringing forth a bill and there will be a debate in Parliament of that bill. That's what they're going to do. So it's not going to solve anything. The other thing is you need to understand what the process is and what will actually be in this bill if it ever gets to Parliament. There will be no discussion of details of flavors in this bill. The bill will cover what they're going to do on disposables and the procedure for that. That is the purpose of that bill. There will be mentions of flavors and mentions of merchandising and where the products can be merchandised and things like that, because the government doesn't have the legal power at the moment to make those changes. So this bill has to give them the legal power to change flavors, has to give them the legal power to make other changes. So that's what will be in the bill. So when that bill goes through, then they have the legal mandate to do it. Then the flavor discussion will start. So that could be 10, 12 months down the road.
At the beginning of a Labour government. Yeah.
So this is why I'm saying it's not a wrong thing to do. And yes, we are going to have that fight, but it's not going to be in the next 2 or 3 months, you know. So this is why when I had the discussion with the mayor and, you know, with Graham, who's our regulatory guy, who knows the process, you know, inside out, it made sense to him now what he should be doing. You know, the best thing you could be doing now as consumers, as constituents, is scaring the hell out of your MP, right? Because all they're interested at the moment is saving their job or running away from their job and getting a real job, because there's about 110 of them that aren't going to run again on the Conservative side. Or you've got the Labour guy, you know, who wants to get that job. Now, in some of those constituencies, the margin of error between losing your job and getting a new job
is very thin,
down to very few people.
Yep.
Now, if you have all of these vapors banging on their constituency doors, writing to their MPs, going, you know, you bring this in, we're not voting for you, right? There's as I said, there's 4.6 million vapors. Now, not all of them are going to engage, because many of them are buying from convenience stores and things like that, and they're not really engaged in the industry. But even if half of them banged on that door and said, listen, we're not going to vote for a Conservative MP.
Cheers, just Josh.
You guys are voting for this. That at this point in time is going to get results, right? Because what we want is, when the bill comes out, we want pro-vaping MPs to go, oh, this is absolute bullshit. You know, I'm not going to vote for this. Or why haven't you looked at licensing or bigger fines before you start banning things, right? Because as the association, our viewpoint is that the problem is not the products. The problem is when that product moves from a retailer's hand, whether that's online, delivery service, whatever, into a child's hand. That is where the problem is.
So we've got challenge. The annoying thing is we've got challenge 2025 that's not backed up.
The problem is the fines are ridiculously low.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people saying that. Yeah, yeah.
And you know, I'm blue in the face talking to them about this. We had one case, for instance, I think it was up north, where a convenience store was caught twice selling to a 14-year-old. The combined fines were £27.
Yeah,
from the.
It's happening up here.
That's just ridiculous.
You know, it's just insane. So, you know, we're looking for a fine of a minimum of 10 grand. Then the second fine will be 20 grand. The next one will be you lose your license for a period of time and you can't trade.
Something similar to what I said. Yeah, something similar to the idea I had.
It's sensible solutions. But frustratingly, about 6 months ago, I was on another Zoom call with one of the people who were working on that bill at the time, and he's like, "Oh no, the government has looked at licensing and has shelved the idea." I'm like, "Why?"
Because it would bring them in more money if they did that.
Well, the report that we did on just licensing alone, we reckon it will bring in 15 million a year.
Yeah.
Now that's without the fines. Now you had the fines in there. You're probably looking at least for the first year, because everybody's going to go, oh, nobody's going to fine us, and then suddenly they get a fine of 10 grand. So that'll probably bring in another few million in fines as well.
I've been talking obviously about licensing for vape shops, get them out of convenience stores and places like that, and put them into the right place where people can get the right information. What sort of pricing was you looking at for, just say, a bog standard bricks and mortar store? What would their license be?
I think now Vape Club were the one that put it together. They put a lot of resources to it. I think they were looking at about 750 quid a year was what I think they based it on. But, you know, we also have to look at maybe, you know, larger companies paying substantially more and things like that. But that's a detail you can kind of work out. It's the framework of it that we were interested in. And it was the only tweak, and I totally agree with them, that the trading standards representative at the meeting in Parliament talked about was it had to be ring fenced for trading standards in that region.
Right, so they don't waste the money somewhere else. Yeah.
Some of them, like Manchester, for instance, they're dealing with a lot more issues than, somebody in Somerset, for instance, The other thing is with the licensing, it has to include distributors and wholesalers, because the idea that we're having is, and I'll talk a little bit about what I do in China as well, because I know you guys wonder what the hell's John doing in China for a week, right? What we're looking at is that the product would be licensed coming into the country, but we also have to change who regulates that product coming in. So right now it's backwards. You've got MHRA who are looking at the documentation that's submitted, going, yeah, okay, that looks good, rubber stamp it, happy days. Then the product gets into the marketplace, and trading standards then determine whether it's legal or not. But it's already in hundreds of stores by the time they get around.
That's how weird way of doing it.
That's the current system, right?
Thank you.
So what we've suggested is take that power away from trading standards, give it to MHRA. They can raise the fee that they charge to maybe 250 quid a year per SKU. It's not a big deal. And they look at product design, they look at the packaging design, the naming, all of that, and go, yeah, okay, that follows the guidelines. That's a good product. Stamp.
And I like the idea, because MHRA is much more heavily funded than trading standards is.
You would think.
Also, they're not.
But the other problem with MHRA is they have a very strict mandate of what they are allowed to look at and what they are not allowed to look at. And that's the annoying part, because MHRA, Craig, who runs MHRA for us, is a vapor. He gets the industry. He's ex-trading standards. He knows what he's talking about, and he's in our court. He wants to do the right thing, but his hands are tied.
Right.
And we saw the debacle around the Elf Bar situation and how that rolled out or didn't roll out. That's because everybody was like this. It's not our fault. It's this department. That department's in charge of this. That department's in charge of that. It was just nightmare. But this is what we have to deal with on a daily basis. This is why I've got no bloody hair left.
It just feels though, as vapors over the last year, especially obviously the TPD came in, we seem to be just tumbling in from one thing to the next thing. We was really hoping that the fact with the positive things that were coming out from the UK and the government, you got to think it was only a year back, everything was all positive and shiny. Everything was absolutely great. And the rest of the world of vapors were saying how great the UK is. And then we find ourselves in this sort of situation. We was hoping there was going to be a little bit more clarity about the 10ml bottles, nicotine maybe coming back into bottles, this tank size and things like that. It was going to all change. And now we're looking at a tax, maybe a paper that's going to go through to a flavour ban. It's all sort of changed very, very quickly.
Well, I think you've got to go back a little bit more than a year. I think you've got to go back about 2. When the disposables started to really kick off. We were doing fine until that point.
We were.
But you've also got to look at what's been happening politically in that same time frame. So I'm on my third prime minister in that time frame. I'm on my 8th health minister in that time frame, and we're on the 4th chancellor. I've lost count of the chancellors.
It's the fourth.
So the answer to that question is right there, and how many, that revolving circle. Now the interesting thing is, if you remember, Vic, around when we had our forum last November.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
So I was getting a lot of intel that week that there was a big fight going on between Number 10 and the health department. And lo and behold, the Monday after our forum, both the health minister and the secretary of state for health quit. One because he wanted to go play army, and one because he wanted to go spend some more time with his kids, right? That doesn't happen in politics unless something major is blown up over the weekend.
Yeah, they were basically forced out.
Yeah, so now then the Prime Minister puts in 2 more people, right, who we currently have. One is the one who put her name to signing the ban disposable 10-minute bill.
Yep.
Right. And the other one is a member of parliament who has absolutely no interest in this bill whatsoever. This is not her remit. This is not her interest. But they are there to do whatever Rishi Sunak tells them to do.
So basically, Rishi was essentially stacking the deck in his favour.
Absolutely. After the
that
big
doesn't fucking surprise me.
He stacked the deck. And this is where things started to go massively downhill very, very quickly. Because we're used to fighting things on logic, and we've done a fantastic job fighting things on logic. But now you have a prime minister who couldn't care less about logic, who's more interested in going on TikTok and, rocking up and doing stupid videos, trying to make himself look cool, right? Or pampering to, the mum's net crowd of the world, save our kids, but they don't want to do anything to actually solve the problem with the kids. They just want to get that headline grabber. And this is Rishi's, smoke-free generation. That's what he's hanging his hat on.
Josh has just asked a question. Normally we'd do a buffet when we started.
Yeah.
But do you vape yourself?
I vape a non-nicotine liquid because I enjoy vaping.
He's a 0 milligram vapor.
But I don't do nicotine. I smoked 3 packs a day since I was 14. I don't want to go back to nicotine. But I enjoy vaping.
You vape for the flavours. That's what a lot of 0 milligram folks do. They vape for the flavours.
And also, it gives you that sensation of that you still maybe the smoking or the vaping. You're still getting that sensation, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a social thing for me, but I enjoy lots of sweet things. The fun one I have with the interviews is when people start throwing the bright colours and bubblegum flavour. I've got a bubblegum flavoured vodka downstairs. I've got
the alcohol.
a strawberry candy floss gin. And I always have a pack of Haribo in my pocket because I'm 57 years of age.
We'll leave that right there.
I'm not allowed like flavors. But this is how pathetic this whole argument is.
Bunny's got a follow-up question to this one. Sorry, John.
Go ahead.
Okay, as a 0 milligram vapor, how do you feel about 0 milligram liquids being subject to massive taxes?
I think that's wrong. A wrong thing to do.
Can we get your real person head rather than UKVIA?
No. What I am in favour of with 0 nicotine liquids is I want them to be under the same regulation, i.e., they have to go through the same testing and the same registration as the products that have nicotine. And the reason I say that is that it is a ticking time bomb because we don't know what's in them, we don't know how it's going to react, and that could come back to bite us. That's the only thing that I think we should be doing with 0 nic. I don't think we should be taxing these products at all, whether they've got nicotine in them or not. In fact, the successful argument we have always made with previous chancellors of the Exchequer is that instead of charging 20% VAT, because they are the most successful unofficial smoking cessation product, they should be at 5% VAT, not 20% VAT.
Drop the VAT down, yeah.
Duty. That has worked with every single chancellor until this one.
Mr. Jeremy Hunt.
That's the individual.
And if you wouldn't mind, before we lose you, we can jump.
I'm staying on. I'm fine. You haven't killed me yet.
See, this is why I've held back in the questions, John, because some of the questions on Facebook are, oh boy.
Yeah. So we'll start with a few questions. I have got one from Jason who put one in chat. Let me just find it. And controversial or not, why was UKVIA endorsing Disposables so openly when barely any UK companies make them?
It's not that we were endorsing Disposables. We endorse a lot of the things that our members do, whether it's around recycling, whether it's around innovation of products and things like that. There was quite a few disposable innovations coming along, especially when it was around the recyclability of the products and things like that. So that's what we were focusing on while disposables were still allowed. But I can tell you right now, probably half our membership is in favor of disposables, half our membership is not. But the fact of the matter is, disposables are not a new product. They've been around since I've been in the industry. You know, when there was 20,000 vapors out there was no e-liquids. That's when I started in this industry. But what's changed is the way they've been promoted, the popularity of them. That's all what's
the
changed.
marketing, basically.
Yeah. So it went from, you know, a decline from 10% to 5% of the market to all of a sudden 70, 80% of the market within probably 6 months.
Yep.
It was insane to watch. So it's not that we're in favor of disposables, but we do believe that disposables have a place because they have brought 600,000 new vapors into vaping. The majority of those were previous smokers. Some of them were not. But they don't stay on the disposables for very long because adults are not stupid. They figure out, oh, I'm going through 6 or 7 of these a week in some cases. So that £5 purchase really is not very affordable after about 5 or 6 weeks. And then they become a little more confident and they move on to an open tank system or a pod system or whatever that's slightly, you know, less expensive. That's always been the journey. It's just how quick that journey happens has changed over the last 10 years. But this is why, you know, we have to look at what the market is actually wanting. And it also comes back to the fact as an association, we don't favor bans at all. Because if you give them one thing, they will come back for the next and they will come back for the next. And that's what we're seeing. Ban this, tax this, you know, the next thing will be, you know, the flavored thing. What's taken us by surprise is the way this government has acted since last October, since the change in health ministers.
Yeah, it was like a complete 180.
Oh, it was like a tsunami coming at all directions. But the other thing, we were talking about our budget beforehand. The anti side of what we deal with here in the UK, their budget is about 25 million.
That's the anti-e-cig lobby, folks.
Mine's 400-ish grand. So you can tell the difference between one and the other.
I think Barry Pixie Juice comes up with a fantastic point there as well. They don't just buy the disposables, which are obviously legal. The amount of shops that are out there now that they're selling the stuff that isn't illegal.
Yep.
Well, that is illegal, so should I say? With flashing lights and 4,000 some odd, or even more. Is it 4,000 puffs?
Yeah.
4,000 puffs. I think the highest one I've seen is 10,000 puff disposable.
Well, you know, that's one of the. This is one of the things that makes my blood boil, right? Because I've been warning about this for well over.
You got them fish fingers, didn't I?
Oh, it's terrible. It's but I've warned about this for well over 2 to 3 years, right? And the fact that, and I use the word industry very loosely here, right? But the industry has caused this problem. It's not the UKVIA. It's not anything else. It's the morons that are importing this illegal stuff. It's the idiot retailers, both in the convenience and sadly in the vaping industry, that are buying this stuff, sell it in their shops, promoting it on TikTok. They're the ones to blame for what the tsunami that's come down our road, because they've given the government, or this government, the ammunition to come after us. And that annoys the living daylights out of me. Absolutely does. And, you know, going around that show last time in Birmingham, and you've got brands like R&M, you know, with 2 massive stands, one at the front and one at the back, you know, with queues of people in front of them. And not one single thing on there is legal.
Yeah, I noticed that.
One single thing on there could be in any way construed to be an adult product. It's got monkeys and crap all over it, you know.
Here's my wife.
But you know, when I go to China, my goal there is to get companies to change. My goal there is to interact with the Chinese government to get them to muscle in on these companies. We already got them to change the regulations in China that we've seen that came in about 1.5 years ago. That was the work that we've been doing with the Chinese Association. So there's things like that we do internationally, because I'm trying to protect our borders but all of the products come from there. So unless I can influence what's happening in China, my job is 10 times harder here in the UK. So when you see me going to China, that's what I'm doing.
Good. To be honest, though, that must be like trying to push an extremely heavy boulder up an extremely steep hill with no help.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, as a reviewer, I've been dealing with for the past 10 years practically. I've been dealing with a lot of company CEOs over in China, and they just don't get it.
No, they don't.
They don't.
They don't.
And it takes an awful lot of pushing to get it. But I will say that the Chinese Association, the ECCC, are doing a fantastic job to support us. They get it. They represent about 98% of those members. So
right.
So their CEO, who I talk to probably 3 times a day, and it's really interesting because he doesn't speak English and I don't speak Chinese. So it's been a really interesting 3.5 years of working with them.
Should be both know Braille.
Yeah, well, thankfully WeChat translates for you. And I got these little earbuds that I talk in English and he hears Chinese, and he speaks Chinese and I hear it in English. Really great things. They've been a help. But to give you an idea, like I went over in December to speak at their conference. I was there for 11 days. I landed in China, and within 45 minutes I was in my hotel having a shave, putting a suit on and going to a meeting. I stopped 11 days later after putting in 16-hour days for 11 days. I was doing 5 meetings a day, lunches, dinners, frigging karaoke, you name it.
I'm all up for the karaoke.
I hate it. I can't sing. They take it very, very seriously.
They do.
But that's where you get to these CEOs, is when their guard is down, and they're willing to talk to you. And then that influences then the marketing departments, it influences the sales guys, it influences the people below them. And the Chinese government is also, an avenue that we've been trying to connect with, because the UK government can't talk to the Chinese government can't talk to the UK government.
Yeah.
They talk to both. So I'm trying to position myself in the middle of those, saying, listen, let me broker that conversation and we'll get change to happen. So things that we've been talking about is like full traceability from factory in China to the store in Doncaster, and full traceability of all of that product through the system. Things like that is what we're trying to get brought into Chinese law. And the interesting thing is with the HMRC call today, they're talking about track and trace of the products as well. So that conversation could go down a very interesting route. But these are the type of activities that I do. Now, you see my posts on LinkedIn and all that sort of stuff. It looks all glamorous. It looks wonderful. It's bloody hard work.
Well, it's like Edgy says there. It does sound a little bit like a jolly sometimes, that doesn't it? you can see why people are going. I tell you what, you're £600,000 and he's off in China doing karaoke.
It's interesting because Robert Sidebottom came out with me on this last trip, and it's his first trip to China. And his report back to the members was, I tried keeping up with John. I got about 60% of the way there and collapsed. How the hell he did it. And I can guarantee you, I got on the plane coming back from China, and I took one look at the air hostess, and I said, I don't want any food. I don't want any alcohol. Do not disturb sign. And I slept for 14 hours.
Don't ask me to sing My Way again.
So we'll break into the first question. Because it's quite a meaty one. The wonderful Darren Robertson writes in...
Vape and Brew.
Does John think the reason the UK government is currently ignoring the UKVIA is because they are aware that they represent less than 1% of the UK vape industry due to the high member fees and complete lack of faith in the UKVIA by the majority of the industry? At what point does... This will be a multi-layer, by the way. At what point does John believe the disposable companies have served their purpose and will be ditched, just like they ditched with tobacco companies once they had served their purpose? At what point will UKVIA listen to the industry and push forward a licensing system, you've already covered that bit, that restricts sales to dedicated shops only and has low cost to protect the small and starting businesses, not the ill-hid attempt one by one of their members as a way to push majority out of business so big companies like them flourish more? And before John attempts to say they shouldn't be restricted for consumer choice, a restriction to vape shops only would see an increase in numbers of vape shops opening to serve their demand, with staff who can advise the consumers, unlike the salesperson at the local market till. With the current severe tax proposals by the government and the already noticeable loopholes around it, do you think it would be better for government to tax the nicotine itself at production or import, and that at least 50% of that should be ring-fenced for use in the current underfunded Trading Standards Office, with nicotine and caffeine being similar drugs and with only 3.6% regular youth vaping compared to the 32% youth regular energy drink usage? Good points there, Darren. Should the government instead have nicotine and caffeine tax at the same rate to tackle the underage caffeine epidemic, regular use being at least once a week?
That's about 17 questions all in one, isn't it?
I did say it was going to be multi-layered.
You're going to have to give them to me one by one again.
It's all right. I do this for Aidan every week.
Well, first of all, I think we covered the low cost entry because people could join.
Yeah, we covered the license system. So let's do the first part.
The first one first, yeah.
Does John think the reason the UK government is currently ignoring the UKVIA because they are aware they represent less than 1% of the UK vape industry due to the high members fees and complete lack of faith in the UKVIA by the majority of the industry?
So they're ignoring everybody, first of all. We represent volume-wise about 70 to 80% of the industry within our membership. So no, they don't ignore us. They don't like us. There's a difference. They don't like us because we are so visible. They don't like us because we do get into the politicians that cause them problems. And we know that because they attack us so much. What was the second question? The second part of that?
The second part. At what point does John believe the disposable companies have served their purpose and will be ditched, just like they ditched with tobacco companies once they had served their purpose?
The moving away from tobacco companies was a decision that our members took. They discussed it, they brought it up. The reason it happened was because there was probably about 4% of doors that we were not getting through because of the association with tobacco. We're a democratic organization, so our 36 full members debated it with the tobacco companies present. They took a vote and they decided they no longer wanted to have the tobacco companies present. That's how it happened. I still am of the opinion that the association would have been better representing the entire industry, no matter what the ownership is. I still believe that, but that's the nature of the association. The members decided that's what we do. That's how we work. I don't think disposable companies will go away. They're already transitioning into other products, whether it be liquids, pods, pouches. So, I talk to most of the larger players. Yeah, they're this type of device.
Yeah, this type of device.
They're not too worried about it. What they were worried about was, especially when Scotland brought out, or jumped the gun and brought out the definition of what a disposable was. And there was a couple of key pieces in that definition that people were worried about. Was the replacing the coil, and the product had to be refillable, right? Because it's very poorly written. Now, I've been told by government that the intention is not to target pod systems. So by removing a pod and replacing it with another pod, you are replacing the coil and refilling the device. So we don't have to worry about that. The companies I think that would be in trouble are those that only make disposables and make no other products and are making no attempt to move away from them. And that's just natural. They'll fall by the wayside. So I'm not too worried about that. the third part of the question is what?
Well,
because I have old man memory, I can't.
Did the licensing? So, with the current severe tax proposals by the government and the already noticeable loopholes around it, do you think it would be better for the government to tax the nicotine itself at production or import, and that at least 50% of that should be ring-fenced for use in the current underfunded Trading Standards Office, with nicotine and caffeine being similar drugs, and with only 3.6% regular youth vaping compared to 32% youth regular energy drink usage? Should the government instead have a nicotine and caffeine tax at the same rate to tackle the underage caffeine epidemic, regular use being at least once a week?
I think that's unlikely that they will ever do it that way. What we discussed as a more reasonable approach was a flat tax rather than a nicotine strength tax, and it should be a lot lower, because I understand the benefits of the excise tax when it comes to going after companies that are in the grey market and importing illicit products and things like that. So there is a benefit to it, but I can categorically say I am not in favor of any taxes. I am not in favor of any prohibition. That is not what I personally stand for, and that's what I fight against. But the reality of the situation is, and this was only a matter of time before the government goes, oh, we're losing so much money in tax revenue from cigarettes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've got a £3 billion vaping industry. We want a chunk of that. That's the reality of it. But I think they've come down way too far. You bring up a great point with caffeine, but I think the better one to compare it to is actually alcohol. So what they always throw in my face is it's the bright colors, it's the flavors, it's the flavor name, right? So look at it. Look at alcohol. You've got the big story was the 40 hospitalizations of young people due to vaping related injuries, right? But I looked up the same period of time, there was 15,000 under 15-year-olds hospitalized for alcohol poisoning in the same period as those 40.
I've said it for years and years about it.
Bright colors. Well, walk down the line of alcohol in Tesco's and tell me which doesn't have bright colors in it.
They all do.
Then it's the flavor name. So, it's the candy floss, it's the bubble gum. We talked about it earlier. Go Google, bubblegum gin and bubblegum vodka and all that. There's hundreds of them out there. So are we going to ban alcohol as well under the same arguments making for vaping? I can guarantee you they won't. But this is the hypocrisy of what they're doing, is when you compare that. Oh, and by the way, more kids are drinking in primary school and high school than they are vaping. I can guarantee you that.
It's been like that for a long time.
So that's my answer to that one.
The thing is, all you have to do is think back to when we were children. I know that sounds really bad and we're not endorsing it, and thankfully we're an over 18 show. But it was one of them. You could always get older 2 litre of cider.
Absolutely.
MD 2020. MD 2020.
The difference is, when we did it, you talk to a couple of your mates, down the bike shed and go, oh yeah, the guy down the road on a Tuesday doesn't check, ID or doesn't check.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have friggin' WhatsApp where they can go and tell 3,000 of their friggin' mates that the store on the corner doesn't check ID. That's the difference. They don't have, we didn't have the electronic ways that they can get these products now. Well, it's really annoying, but what really annoys me more is watching especially the vape shops, that do this shit and sell this product and sell it openly with no age verification processes in place. They're stocking all of these products with the fidget spinners and the kiddie logos and the flashing lights. Our industry stocks that shit. The wholesalers in Manchester and Southall, we all know who they are.
We know who they are. Oh yeah.
They've got massive big queues of retailers going in and out of them. That's the annoying thing for me, because I'm trying to do the right thing and my own industry, quote unquote, is stabbing us in the back.
I don't think it's, or my experience of it, or what I know of it, Yeah, you're always going to have the rogue vape shop that will do that.
Sorry, Hedges just made me giggle with that one.
You're gonna have the rogue vape shop that does that, but I think that probably 60 to 70% of the people who are doing this are your bargain boozers. Your convenience store that has nothing to do with vaping. It's not a person who set a vaping store up to sell vape stuff. It's more of the people who are selling beer and vapes on the side that are giving them to children that are underage.
I wish I could agree with you on that, but all of the data and the reports that I have tell me otherwise.
So you don't think it's like the bargain boozers and the corner shops and
there is a lot of that, but unfortunately there are people in our industry who couldn't care less what they sell, or they're not going to come after us. People have the right to buy whatever they want. If people want big puffs, I'm going to sell them big puffs. If people want one with the flashing lights, I'm going to sell it. They look cute, they look cool.
And again, I can understand this what you're saying about the licensing, but again, this is what I'm saying. If you take them out of these bargain boozers and the convenience stores and all that, and just have them under regulated vape shops, that means that they've got one place to go to. Trading standards then haven't got to run around to the bargain boozers that can go around to each vape shop.
I see the problem I have with that is, if you look at the buying habits of smokers, right? Excuse me. The convenience stores do play a part, because a lot of the first time buying of a vape is very much a spontaneous decision.
It's
like
the local corner shop.
That counter, go, do I buy a smoke or do I buy one of these vapey things, right? Now, the products that are available in the convenience stores are not going to satisfy somebody in the vaping on a regular basis. That's where I think the specialty stores come into play, because as you move into more advanced kit, you need lessons. You need to know how to set up the device, how to use it, what's the best liquid for it, all that sort of stuff. So that's why we see so many vape stores popping up all over the place, because there's the one thing a convenience store can't do is that clerk knows bugger all about vapes.
Yeah.
You go and ask them, which one vape should I have? They'll point at the one that they sell the most, or they'll point at the first one that they can grab. That's been that way since day one. And I was the first one to put a brand into a convenience store in the UK. I built Tesco's category, I built WH Smith's category, B&M, the whole lot of them. I know how these consumers work. So that has helped grow the vaping business for the vape shops, because people transition within a matter of probably 6 to 8 weeks. They'll transition into a vape shop. But the problem is that there's no disincentive for any retailer, no matter what part of the industry they're in, from doing the wrong thing. There's no disincentive. There's no disincentive to a wholesaler other than I might lose a container worth of product, right, at customs. There's no, disincentive for them to do that. There's, when you look at advertising, for instance, the ASA have all of these wonderful rules. What happens when you break them? You get an email, don't do it again. Where's the £1 million fine that goes with that to clean up the industry? This is the frustrating thing from my perspective, because I have every politician going, John, what are you doing to solve this? How do you how get your industry to clean up its act?
So
I hear every day.
Here's the big question I'm getting from this. Who or what organisation is stopping the big fines from coming into play?
There is no legislative process to put a big fine in place.
Right.
So
yeah.
And here's the other thing, because I've gone out on raids with trading standards, so I know how difficult their job is. So I'm not going to diss them. They've no money, they have no resources, and it's a very difficult job. And I'll give you an example. I go on a raid in Westminster, right, on Oxford Street. I've got 3 cops, I've got 14 trading standards officers, I've got somebody from the press, and I've got somebody from revenue, right? Because it's a high profile case. You go to Southall, right, where an awful lot of the dodgy wholesalers supplying all of these stores in London are located.
Yeah.
They have one trading standards officer for everything.
Oh, it's the same problem up here. It's the same
For
problem
every
up here.
category.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you've got the same thing. You know, Manchester's a big hub. The interesting thing that pissed me off with Manchester is you've got a council that doesn't talk to the vaping industry, and you have a council that has told trading standards not to engage with the industry. I made connections with the police chief in Manchester who runs all the raids. I had a great chat with him. The second I was getting on a call with them, he was told by his bosses that he couldn't get on the call with me.
Oh.
So he got on the call and told me that he wasn't supposed to be getting on the call with me. Yet that's the biggest hub for illegal activity in our industry.
Is it just me though? Is that just not sound massively complicated? Wouldn't it be the fact of, say you had, I don't know, 6 trading standard offices for the borough of whatever you're in, and then you go, right, this week we're hitting that side, and then next week I'm hitting that side, and then the week after that I'm hitting that side, and you go to them, I'm going to keep coming back here until you do it right. Does that not make sense, or is it just me?
No, the thing is, we have food standards agencies that do that exact same thing. You have maximum 3 food safety officers that go around one area, and what they do is they come in and test you. If you don't pass, then what they do is within 6 months they're back, and that's 3 people, and that's so we've got one district around here, which is the Peak District, as well as into the townships that surround it. You've got 3 food standard officers that do it, and I know because I know all 3 of them. And what they do is they come and see you, they give you your marking, and this could be exactly the same. And the worst thing about it is with this is where money rubs its own arse, because what will happen is if you start fining people, that fine can then be reintroduced to then fund itself to continue.
Saying,
yeah. But the other issue that you're probably not aware of, and we did a Freedom of Information Act request, and in a total of 14 cities over 3 years with a population of 14 million, right, the combined fines were £2,314.
Oh yeah, the fines are laughable.
Yeah.
But the problem is because to get a fine, you've got to go to court because it's a criminal offence.
Right.
I'm still waiting on one that I did a year and a half ago in Westminster for it to actually get to court. There hasn't been a single store prosecuted in Scotland.
Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Because not that the cases weren't put forward. There was hundreds of them put forward, but because it took so long to get to court, they dropped them all.
Yeah. They just wiped it. I knew about that. Yeah.
So
just
to
go back to what I was saying, but why can't it be as simple? Obviously, there were 14 of them, loads of police officers on Oxford Street that you took down there with the press and everything else. Why can't it be as simple as like Doncaster here has got 3 trading standards who are probably not just going to do vape shops, but at their point of their job, suddenly go, right, we're going to hit all these and we're going to go round. You don't necessarily have to take the police with you, even if they just go and check them out. Why isn't it that simple?
Well, first of all, because there's a process that they have to go through. So some of the issues that they find is when they go into a store, they have to find out who owns it. That can be very difficult. Many of these companies are actually registered to fake addresses. So, it gets through all of the system, the fine gets issued, and they go to try and enforce the fine, and it's, Covent Garden, London, SW thing, whatever. When they arrive at that address and it's a council estate with 5,000 flats in it, well, where is this company registered? And which 5,000 one of these 5,000 flats is this company registered? And it disappears.
It disappears, which means the fine can't go through because the court process can't go through because it's registered under a fake address.
I can get that. I can understand that with the fine. But obviously, if the shop's doing it, why are you not shutting the shop down?
But because they don't have the legal power to do it. The other issue they're having in the ones that are doing a good job is they have nowhere to put all the stuff that they've seized. They've run out of room, and they don't have a budget to dispose of it.
What?
because they have to pay to dispose of it,
For fuck's
right?
sake.
So they have to pay a recycler to recycle the stuff that they seized out of the council budget. It's mental.
So I'm guessing in several large boroughs there's probably several warehouses full of millions of pounds worth of illegal disposables that they can't legally get rid of, they can't legally sell, they can't legally return back. They've run out of space to store more, so they need to pay recycling centres a fortune to get... Fucking hell.
And there's just the security guard going out with fucking pockets of health bars, you know what I mean?
And this is one of the other problems we've got at the border as well, except it's by containers. So they're seizing containers of shit.
When is it 4.6 million?
Well, now they've got to pay to dispose of a container load of product. Instead of the suggestion that we have, and I was trying to work with the MHRA on it, is turning the container around,
sending
rejecting it, and making the shipping company pay to send it back to China. You know
what? You know that 15 grand you paid for that little room there? But they should be starting putting a bit of that around.
I'll give you a couple of examples. We even offered to hire and train trading standards officers just to enforce in our industry. We were told we can't do that. We even offered to pay for the recycling of the seized products. We were told we couldn't do that either. There's all sorts of things that we, as an association, said.
You said that. No, that's good.
Yeah.
So we'll move on with the next question before we ramble on again. The wonderful Paul Pogs Foster.
Paul Pugs Foster from the wonderful company known as Fluide.
Oh, okay.
Who we do endorse. Bearing in mind, I'm on Cobalt, which I'm really, really, really enjoying.
Yeah, I'm on impeachment right now. Rather nice.
I don't do any product endorsements.
Yorkshire stripper.
Yorkshire nipples. The wonderful Steam Pugs. To both John and Robert, obviously just to John tonight, with the impending doom of the new tax proposal for 2026, making vaping an almost inaccessible luxury to hundreds of thousands of vapers in the UK, almost double the price at a time when millions of people are already on the breadline due to the cost of living crisis showing no signs of going anywhere. What do you think the real reason is for the catastrophic, stop it with the big words, Steampunk, catastrophic U-turn on vaping in the UK? We've led the way for over a decade, yet the reason for the recent attacks on the industry don't marry up. Their angle was youth vaping epidemic, yet kids do not use the liquids that they are going to be hit the hardest with the new tax system. They never have. So my main question is this. Do you believe the government are being manipulated and fed false information and are acting on this information, or do you believe that there is an ulterior motive at work?
I think we covered this. We have a Prime Minister who is going to be out on his ear in a matter of months.
Yeah.
He's probably the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. He 100% wants to go out with this smoke-free generation narrative that he's now hung himself on. And this is 100% a cash grab at the vapors' expense. 100%. That's what's changed. Nothing else has changed.
To be fair, years ago I'd have thought it would PMI, but because they're getting into vaping now.
Well, there's always a saying.
Throw PMI in there just for shits and gigs.
A good sign of bad legislation is when tobacco companies endorse it, right? And look at the Financial Times the other day. BAT, we love this idea.
Yeah.
Imperial, we love this idea. To me, that's a good sign of bad legislation. Because they know it will have two effects. It will drive down the market and it will drive people back to smoking.
Yep.
That's what I like it.
Good question,
That's that question. And yes, I'm absolutely furious about it, and I'm not going to give up.
Again, just with that question, again, they don't touch these liquids. They're not touching these. The kids, they're not anywhere near it.
No.
So why the hell would you? And the bit that as well that cheeses me off is that you've got a short fill and they try and charge you twice for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I said, they blame the disposable, right? It was all the disposable. That's the only thing. You can also You could also thank our friends over at Ash as well for
Action
part
and
of
Smoking
it,
and Health.
because Deborah was pushing for a duty on disposables, right? Not on everything. Well, now it's backfired on her. And the interesting thing is, watch the interview on Channel 5, because they have her on after they have me on. And she's talking about how this shouldn't be viewed as a sin tax. It's not a sin tax, blah, 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 blah. She's the one that pushed for this.
Yeah, she's the one that put the idea in.
Yeah, so you can thank her for part of this.
So,
we'll have her on next week then.
7 questions.
Can you share screen?
Share screen. Hold on, I'll switch it on. Okay.
How do I do it?
Make sure you're sharing the right screen. Adam, just saying.
Yeah, I ain't got no porn on here. Share screen. Let's put my glasses on.
Yeah, good idea, Adam.
That one. So, the wonderful Shrek. Could you ask John why this letter was only sent 2 days before the budget, please?
You'll need to click on the letter to make it bigger.
Very, very simple. Simply, that's what I knew exactly what was going to be in the budget. We wanted to make sure that there was a public statement out there with our exact feelings on it. Did I think that was going to change the Chancellor's viewpoint? Absolutely not. But this is a document now that is on public record with our views on it. I sent him a follow-up one today after the budget. So this is just part of the process, because all of these documents have to be responded to. They have to be put into public domain. The conversations that we have behind closed doors are not always visible.
Yeah.
So this is just purely a political tool. That's why we made it public.
Answers that question.
And I sent 3 to the PM as well. I think we made them public as well, but I can't remember.
Right.
Again, it's just that I now understand what you were saying. I've said the same sort of thing of why is you're not putting it out on your social medias that you are doing something. But obviously what you've said is that you're doing it at the right time, that you obviously have hid behind your intelligence, but you need to make sure what you're saying is absolutely right.
Yeah. The thing about it is, this is a game, right? Lobbying in government is a game.
It's politics.
There's rules to it. There's procedures to it. They drive me absolutely insane, but you've got to follow the rules. The same way as if a minister doesn't meet with me, we have an office in Westminster. It's right across the road from Parliament. I know what bars these guys are going to. I know what where they go to lunch. I know what train they get home. I will get to see them one way or the other. But those meetings aren't public, right? I just need to get in their ear and say, listen, this is bullshit. I need to talk to MPs on both sides of the house, whether it's Labour, Lib Dem. It doesn't matter to me. I am politically neutral in my job. I talk to everybody who will listen.
Just to clear that was all. Benedict Jones. I'm not saying that social media is the place where you do lobbying. What I'm actually trying to say is that people who are the consumers also actually vape are saying there's nothing being done before it's actually there. That's what I'm saying.
We
and obviously with them then only saying that letter has been released on that date, people would be looking at it thinking maybe you should have said this before it.
We as vapers take a lot of ownership of our industry, especially as hobbyists. We take a lot of ownership, and obviously, when and Bunny's just said it there. And that's right. There is part of the problem. All this behind closed doors. Now, there's a lot of things that we won. I can understand your diplomatic response, because obviously you don't want to post something that's going to come out as wrong in 2 days' time. Yeah. And also, it's a paper trail for yourself to eventually go down the route and then go, look, this is what was said. This is what was said after that. But we take very much ownership of this industry, and especially it's more so us hobbyists, because one, we know the benefits that vaping has done for us as a group, as in the quitting smoking, the health aspects, and just how we feel. So we all take ownership of it, and it hurts when it feels, and it obviously speculation comes from silence.
Yep.
When it feels like nothing is being done, we all feel a little bit hurt by it.
And I do absolutely get that. But as we talked about at the start, there's a difference between a trade organization and a consumer organization.
Yeah.
Our expertise is not Facebook. Our expertise is not Instagram, right? I post stuff on there because I want people to see it, right? None of our work is influenced by anything that happens on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, right? That's where we get to take a dig at somebody. That's where we get to highlight, right, that somebody's not meeting with us, or
I don't think that was actually what was meant. What was actually meant was more of us looking at your association and going, what are you doing about it, and not knowing about it. But then obviously you explaining that you can't really tell us what you're doing about it because it's a little bit cloak and daggers, because it's Parliament. It's not so much that social media will change the world, because obviously it won't. It's down to the government. So you can't release anything and let us know about it until you know about it. It's properly right and done properly, if that makes sense.
But I will take a dig back at this as well from my side, right? I'm probably the most approachable person in the industry, right? I'm the easiest one to get a hold of. And some of the people that called us and ranted and emailed were actually very shocked, because I called them back about 10 minutes after they dropped the F-bomb like 500 times to me on the comments thing. But this is the first show, right, that any of the reviewers in the UK have had me on. This is the first show.
We had to get you on. We had to get you on.
If you wanted to know what was happening, you should have had me on, because I'll tell you, right? As you see, I don't shy away from stuff, when asked. But it was the first reviewer to contact me about this whole thing was Sam in Australia.
Oh, Bogan.
Yeah. He contacted me about a week and a half ago.
We'll do his moving here.
Well, actually, he's not Australia now, because tomorrow is actually going to be Sam from the UK. He's moving here tomorrow.
But the other thing as well, and I'll take a dig at the industry as well for this, is a lot of people in the UK are lazy gits. They are cheap, lazy. They want everybody else to do the shit for them, but they don't want to put any effort into it until the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And they want somebody to blame, and they go, "Oh, you guys are not doing anything, blah blah blah." I'm like, okay, so you're a vape business turning over, 10 million quid a year. When have you become a member of the UKVIA or IBVTA or any of them? This is what gets me, is when the shit hits the fan, is then they start complaining.
The thing is, and this is where we are slightly different from we're the consumer market. We're not the industry market, and obviously on the bottom rung of everything, we're the hobbyist of the consumers as well. So we are the minority in the vaping industry.
We're the niche of the niche.
But we're also the ones that care the most,
Yes.
which is where independence comes out with the UKVCA.
Yep.
I always want to do that. But the UKVCA and stuff like that, because that's what we do. And I think what Pugs pointed it out, that
I think that's a great. He was just saying that once with John. It wouldn't hurt for you or obviously the association for you to make some kind of statement to say you were aware of the stress being caused and you are working on it.
Just because
to be quiet, I think that's a perfectly good.
Yeah, we are the consumers. We're not only the consumers. You've got more potential of someone out of our chat or someone out of our community to go out there and spend £400-500 on a mod. They're not bothered about what disposables are on the market. We're in this because it's a hobby. A lot of people say, "Why do I still do the show?" It's because this is a love of mine, and I adore this industry. And we've sat through years and years of innovation, grey areas, whether it be the building of a community, which we all started back in the day, to now, whereas we're not the industry, we are the consumers at the bottom level, and all it is. And I think you've hit some real good points. You've hit some real good business to business points But what it is this is the heart of the community.
Yep.
And we're the ones that are sat there going, right, we want to do something, but we don't know what to do. Yep. And I think a figurehead of that sort of spear to take it to the heart of government, which the UKVIA should be, needs to be a little bit more open with those people. And you've done the right thing by coming on the UK Vape Show, the UK's #1 live vape show. But I think it's don't forget, we run Smoker faceless, Geek Vapor faceless. Everything's faceless in the vape industry. So to have someone with a human face be able to sit there and go, we can't tell you what we're doing, but things are trying to be done, goes a massive, massive distance.
In other words, John, what he's basically saying
hopefully
is...
tonight has helped with that situation, I hope.
What you basically need, John, is to get somebody in UKVIA to actually take care of social media.
Yeah.
Fucking sorted for a job, isn't he?
No, I'm not. I've already got a job with SX Mint.
Yes,
Don't
he's
need another
fucking
one.
sorted for a job.
The problem is there's only 24 hours in the day.
Yeah, but from what Adam was saying, I mean, part of the reason that I went on that series of rants, which you were looking at when you were on the phone.
It's a good thing you didn't have a drink. Let's put it that way.
But it was part of the reason. The reason I went on those series of rants is the big problem with UKVIA, as you already know, is no one knows what the fuck you're doing.
Except our members.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sorry, I'm short of £10,500 to give it you. I'm going to save up. I'm going to save up for nicotine tax.
There's no problem sending me an email going, "Hey John, what's happening?" Or "Can you come on the show and let us know?" Or "Give me a bloody ring." You're
going to regret saying that, because anytime the government make a fuck you announcement, you're coming on this show.
That's fine. Absolutely fine. I have no problem with it. You guys are much nicer than the people I have to deal with.
See
in the
that?
studio.
You called me nice.
I can tell you that much. Huh?
You called me nice.
Well, not as confrontational.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that.
So I'll go with another question.
Yeah,
2 seconds while you're doing that. I'm back.
Hi, CVP here, the wonderful David Jacobs. I would like to ask John, I'm going to say John, but it does say John and Robert, a simple question. Do you agree with me that under the new taxation proposal for vaping to be introduced, it's still cheaper to vape than smoke? I was working it out. 100 ml usually lasts me 5 to 7 days. A pack of 20 cigarettes would last a day. Accounts for the tax from October 26, it would cost me between £25 and £38 per 100 ml with nick shots. In today's pricing, a pack of 20 cigarettes would set me back anything up to £18. So if I smoke a pack a day, it would cost me £126 per week, plus I'm saving my health as well. Good maths.
Stop telling the government what they want to hear. Because that is it. No, that is the argument they're making. They're going to say, right, we're going to jack up the price of cigarettes, and jack up the price of vapes, right? So there's still that comparison. The problem is, it's the ones that are changing from smoking to vaping. A good proportion of those are not buying legal cigarettes. They're buying grey market cigarettes.
Yep.
They're buying rollies that are not duty paid, right? They don't have a lot of money. That's fact. So when you talk about those people transitioning now into a more expensive vape, that's where the issue is. You know, I have no, and it kind of got me annoyed on the interview yesterday on Channel 5, because they interviewed a couple of customers and the guy's like, I couldn't care less. It's only a couple of quid more. I don't care. Yeah, because you're in the centre of London.
Yeah.
You don't give a shit. What about the guy in Doncaster that's got like £3 left in his pocket? His lecky's running out, and he's got to make it.
You're telling me a life story.
I'm a realist, right? The other thing about that you guys should all understand about me, I don't have a commercial interest in the industry, right? I don't have a brand. I don't work for a company, so I think more about consumers probably than anybody else, because you guys didn't exist when I started in this industry. There was only a cig-like. Liquids didn't exist. In fact, I still remember having a conversation in the boardroom going, oh, this liquid shit will never take off. Who'd want to refill their own device, for God's sake? That's a stupid idea. So I absolutely get the whole community thing. And this is why I am passionate about what I do. This is why I do it. Because yes, I'm paid by the association, right? They pay me a wage. And yes, my job is to fight for the industry. Well, I love the industry, therefore I love the consumers who want to use our product to stop killing themselves. That's what I love. So I get it from both sides.
Yeah.
But, you know, give me a big device, I'm screwed. I don't know one side of an own from another. That's your world that you live in. I'm technologically challenged, hence I use a disposable because I can't screw it up. You know, but I get the passion that's in the industry. You know, I've been to every single vape show there's been in this country. I never miss one. You know, as an association, we're there at every single one of the shows, even if there's nobody there in some cases. You know, but that's what we do. So I'm hoping that this clears up, with, at least with your viewers anyway, the fact that, you know, John Dunne is not this a-hole that's sitting over there that doesn't care less, only cares about, you know, Elf Bar and SKE and all of those guys, and doesn't care about us. I care about everybody.
And that's a good point to have, because that goes over the points that we've been saying, that UKVIA, up until this point, for a lot of people in chat, have been faceless. And that community side is a big thing for us anyway. So to get involved with the community always helps. We've got a three-pronged. I've only got two more questions for you. So
okay.
we've got a three-pronged one from Rob Shawnee.
Ah, Rob.
How many of UKVIA members are actually willing to fight this? I went to my local independent stores and they are all writing to MPs and government in protest. I went into a vape chain store and their response was, we will just put our prices up.
As I said earlier, probably half our members like disposables, half of them don't. That's probably the reality of the situation. But our members supply products that consumers want. It's as simple as that. You know, we had the same thing when TPD came in and short fills came out, right? I had members going, I'm never stocking a short fill, blah, 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 blah. That's not going to happen in my store, and sure as shit.
It did. Yeah.
You know, I have one company that absolutely hates disposables. Yet when I go to dinner with the CEO of it, he's always got about half a dozen of them in his pocket. You know, so it's really tough. But this is the challenge of having an organization that's got 106 companies in it. Part of my job is to try and come to a consensus of what those companies are willing to do. You know, our goal is to try and raise standards. So we have some members that we've let in that are a little bit troublesome, right? But they want to work towards being better. So we let them in with a lot of restrictions. And, you know, the organization changes. You know, tobacco companies were in for a period of time. It didn't suit the organization's goals. So they were out. You know, the organization moves. But I can guarantee you that every one of our members are in the business for the long term. They're in the business to run the industry in a responsible manner. And they want to have an industry here for everybody in 25 years' time. That is their goals. They're not here to run anybody out of business. In fact, we've got a members WhatsApp group where all of the members can be on there, no matter whether they pay 10 grand or 50 quid. And that's where they chat about their problems. And you have big members helping smaller members with shipping issues, with tax issues, with you know, all sorts of different things, because we are a community within the organization. And it's really nice. That's why if you notice when we introduce a new member, we welcome them to the UKVIA family, because it feels like a family rather than just a whole bunch of companies beating the hell out of each other. But it's a tough part of my job to try and keep all the children playing nicely.
I think you've answered half of this question, so it's the second half. Also, why do we only see UKVIA action after the government has done something and not before? You answered that by the cloak and dagger side. What is their plan of action now after the budget announcement? Are they inviting all the independent stores to join the fight with them?
The first thing we had to figure out is what way the government is going to try and do that. The first step to that was having the meeting with the HMRC team today. So I sat down with 4 of our members, with the 3 people that are tasked with implementing this. So we now have to go back from that conversation and look at what we could do. We're going to have to take a 2-prong approach. We're going to have to work with these guys on trying to have them understand where the issues are with what they propose. The other part of what we're going to have to do is work with MPs to put pressure on the exchequer to say what you have proposed is lunacy. It's not going to work. Because one side cannot do anything about what the exchequer has said. They've been told, implement this policy. That's what they will do. They don't care why it's happening. They don't care where the information came from, anything like that. So it's going to be a 2-pronged approach. This is where getting a hold, like we talked about earlier in the show, getting a hold of your MP, talk to them about flavors and why it's important. Talk to them about your specific journey out of smoking, right? That vaping helped. It was the flavors that helped me. Here was how I transitioned. My health is better. My granny's health is better. All of this type of stuff. They love those stories, because then when the debate comes to Parliament, and that will be in the second reading of the bill, because the first reading is going to be probably a 2.5 minute. The minister will stand up and say, "We are bringing forth this bill," blah blah blah. They will go yay, nay. It'll always be yays.
Yeah.
And then it goes off into the realm, and then 24 hours later, we will get the bill made public that we can look at and read and see what they're up to. Then it will go to the second reading. That's where the MPs can ask questions. They can put in submissions for changes and amendments and things like that. We're already writing those amendments based on meetings that we've had with members of the House of Lords, members of the House of Commons. So we're writing those responses for them to submit once it comes to the floor. So that work is all done. We're just waiting for the bill to actually appear now, because there's nothing we can do until that happens. And this is why when I talk to Amir, I'm like, hold your horses for a second. You're getting too worked up just a little bit too early. The other thing that we've got to be really careful of is while it's reasonable for us to suggest how people should write letters, right? The worst thing that we can do in the world is to give a person a template letter. Because all that happens in Parliament is, and all that, we've seen it happen on so many of these things. We got 200 responses from consumers that we disregarded because they were obviously influenced by industry and a template letter. They just go, we're not going to look at them. It's
the reason I said in one of the WhatsApps that came out about a week and a half ago to go to write to them, but write the letter yourself.
Yes,
don't template it.
We could help you with things that you should be saying in it, but it has to be in your words. It has to tell your story, right? And if an MP is getting enough of those from his constituents, right, then he'll listen to it. But the problem is, the Mumsnet crowd are really great at writing letters. They're really good at sending emails and bitching to politicians. They're excellent at it. We're not so good at doing that. The other thing that's helpful is to make suggestions, right? To say, while we don't agree with the ban, right, or whatever, this would be a better option that the government could look at that we feel would have the same result or a better result, right? So giving them options that they can go, well, why hasn't the government considered licensing? Why hasn't the government considered, heavier fines? Why hasn't the government considered this and that? So those are the type of things that we could do really well.
And good answer. Final question. Put the goggles back on. Hello, John. Leandra here from The Guardian. John probably doesn't remember me. It's been a while. With the UK government... You what? From The Guardian?
From The Guardian? Jesus.
From The Guardian.
Okay, that was Saturday night show, dear.
We only bring the best people in, you see, when I'm on.
I only read Daily Tit. With the UK government moving forward with what looks like a path that is a complete U-turn of what they have said about vaping last year, with what looks like no input on their direction from outside, does this mean the UKVIA has essentially become irrelevant when it comes down to government stance on vaping in the UK going forward?
I don't think we've become irrelevant. I think we have a Prime Minister who has his head in the sand and cares nothing about the UK public, but cares more about his legacy when he's kicked out on his rear end in about 6 months.
Yeah.
That's what they care about. This whole, all you've got to do is look at the consultation, right? And how that was written. How shall we ban these products? Option A, B, C, or D.
Oh, God,
or don't know.
The first consultation was a mess.
It was, the writing was on the wall when that came out, that they're gunning for us. So no, we're not irrelevant because nobody else is going to fight the fight. So I will go down fighting. I will go down when the last breath is from my body. I can tell you that.
So here's a question from the political side. It's becoming blatantly obvious the Conservatives are not going to win the next election. If they do, it's going to be a miracle, and it's probably fixed it. From the dealings you've had with the Labour Party, who are currently in opposition, what's the temperature like with Labour when it comes to vaping?
I am very worried about Labour.
Damn. I was hoping you wouldn't say that.
No, and I am, but again, going back to with my lobbyist hat on, right? Labour haven't been in government for over 13 years.
Yeah.
Lobbyists are scrambling to make friends with Labour. Now, the good thing is I have very good contacts in Labour who are very willing to help us. They can get me in front of the right people. But the problem with Labour is Labour has two views at the moment. Whatever the Conservative Party is doing, we want to do the opposite. Or whatever the Conservative Party is, we want to do it harder and faster because they're useless and they're too slow, right? So that is the chest beating that is happening at the moment. Now, if and when they get into power, will they have a majority? Or will they have to go into coalition maybe with the Lib Dems, for instance, right? That's a possibility. And every time a government gets into power, generally 90% of what they say before they get into power, they do the opposite, right? So until, and this is what everybody is in the same boat, until Labour do get in, or a new party gets in, whoever they are, we don't know how they're going to act. But it does concern me that, Wes Streeting, who is the shadow Minister for Health, went to Australia. He likes the Labour approach there.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good at all.
But he also doesn't understand what's going on. Now, the difference is that Wes is quite happy to talk to me and doesn't hide from me like the Secretary of State here does in the Conservative Party. So if I can sit down with Wes one-on-one over a nice pint, which I know he likes, I'm sure we could probably figure out a really good approach for Labour to take that would solve the problem. Absolutely convinced of it. but you just have to sit down. Now,
You-
at the Labour conference, he did commit publicly to sitting down with me. So he's on record saying he will.
But obviously, that again, you've got Starmer who's going to be running it the same as Sunak's running it now, isn't it? It's what voters want to hear.
Yeah, but this is why I think, you know, going back to your points, get on to your Labour candidate, right? If you think Labour's going to get in your constituency, get on to your Labour candidate, bash them on why vaping is a good thing. We do have one or two good advocates. You know, Mary Glindon is fantastic for vaping, and you know, she'll beat the drum. But the problem is, we're going to lose some very good vape advocates in the next general election. Mark Palsy, for instance, is not standing. Adam Raffray is not standing in the next general election, and they've been some really good allies to us. They've challenged us, but they get vaping, they understand it. So we are in for a very challenging next 12 months. My job is not going to be easy. Your jobs are not going to be easy. But if we give up, and if we don't keep fighting in the right way, then they're going to steamroll over us. It's as simple as that.
Now, John did say fighting the right way, not the way that I talk to politicians, which is why half the SNP no longer talk to me.
Yes, I would not advise to do what Vic does to politics.
There was stalking a few of them at their houses. He has got a couple of orders against him now.
But it is great to see the Guardian has jumped on. I'm really pleased.
To be honest with you, though, I think it's an absolute valid point. They're saying it obviously, essentially, would you become irrelevant with everything that's happened there? And do your members have to sit there and think, I tell you what, we're paying into this? Are they actually doing anything for us?
I can guarantee you there's very few of our members that think in that way. They understand how difficult this is. You know, as an association, yes, we are going to get turnover. We're going to get companies that change hands and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, that's going to happen. Yeah.
But our turnover in members is very, very low. I think we've had 2 members that have voluntarily left, that haven't either gone bought over by somebody or gone into liquidation for some reason. Yeah. And one of those just they went down a different path mentally than we did, which is fine. And the other one said, listen, I just don't do enough business in the UK anymore to warrant being a member. So to me, that's a good sign, right? The fact that we've gone from 22 members to 109-ish at the moment, that to me is a good sign. But I want the organization to be 500, to be 1,000, because that gives me, not taking the money aside from it, that gives me more leverage in Parliament. But that's the way I look at it. But half my headache at the moment is making sure that we don't have money left at the end of the year, because I don't want to pay 19% corporation tax.
Yes, the good old HMRC.
Yes, right. So what we do is we forward fund projects. So if we know, right, at the end of the year we've got 20 grand left, we go, right, what projects did we want to do that are going to cost 20 grand, and we forward bill that project for next year. So we make sure that we never give HMRC any of the money that we bring in, because we need every single pound that we get. The other thing as well is, and if you talk to members about when they join UKVIA, the first conversation goes, well, what's my return on investment if I join the UKVIA, right? That's the killer question, because I will tell them to go away and have a think about why they're joining an association, and come back when they're not going to ask me that question. The second question I will say is, join at whatever level you want to, because I don't want to spend the next 6 months trying to convince you why you spent 10 grand versus 5 grand versus whatever. Join at whatever level you want. And all of your money is, more than welcome. We'll take it all. But I want you to voluntarily want to do that, not because I've bullied you into joining. And that's what you see. Our membership will grow quickly, like for a couple of months, and then it'll be quiet, and then there'll be 2 or 3 more announcements, because companies are going, oh shit, First Union have joined, or this company's joined. I should join too, And next thing I get a few phone calls going, yeah, I know you've been bugging me for 3 years, but maybe now is the time.
This is also one of the reasons if you go to either one of the expos, either May or October, it is very, very difficult to get your hands on John, because he's constantly running around like a headless chicken talking to people.
and that's where I go. I don't know any of the products. I really don't care about the products. I'm there to talk to people. That's what I'm there for.
Yeah.
Whether it's you, whether it's the community, whether it's brands, I can have 150 meetings in 2 days. That could take me a year to try and get around to all those people. The same way when I go to China, when I do my talk, and I get a half hour to do my spiel, but there's 2,500 people in that conference room listening to what I'm saying. All the bosses from all the companies are there for that day. That's why I go, because I can guarantee you my last 2 speeches to them have been, who's responsible for this shit? I'm not there to be warm and fuzzy. I'm not there to be their friend. I'm there to tell them to stop doing shit that's killing our industry.
It's true.
Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. I'm surprised we actually finished on time. So before we do go, John, this is the reason for the folks in chat that I've basically sat back, because I looked at the questions on Facebook, and all of the points I was wanting to make, you lot out there asked it. And it'd be better if the community asked it rather than some little fat Scotsman shouting and ranting, which is what
Absolutely.
I like doing, to be honest.
And listen, if you want to have me on again, give me a shout.
We will. The next time the government drops their pants and shits on us from a great height, we're bringing you on.
and we will be at the show for the upcoming show for 3 days. We've got a stand there. I'll try and sit on the couch for most of it if I can. But come and talk to us. Even if you're not a member, I don't care. I get half a dozen calls from companies asking for advice. I don't care whether they're a member or not. I'll still answer their questions. And then I'll tell them why don't you join. But we never turn anybody away.
So before we do go, yes, Pugs, pop in after show up, we'll pop in. If you had a message, a short message, like a 30-second message, that you wanted to send out to the general public that's going to be watching the replay of this, what's the message, John?
Get your finger out and talk to your MP as soon as possible. That's the message for right now.
Short and simple, and I was saying that 2 weeks ago.
All right, fucking know it all. Fucking hell, that's another what's up tomorrow.
Actually, there is going to be a what's up tomorrow.
See?
It's going to be about something
job
else.
Application for social media.
One of my mates, Mindwipe, Phil, he asked me a question yesterday, and like John was saying, like myself, like a lot of people, they're struggling for cash. What's going to happen? Because Mindwipe's on a little POC X from Aspire, I think, and he's buying the little 10ml TPD compliant bottles, and he's seeing the price that's going to go up. So that's what the WhatsApp's going to be about tomorrow. Anyway, that is it from us. Mr. Pugs has popped up a link, and I'm gonna link that link. There was no box away and giveaway today, folks, because I wanted to basically dedicate this show onto John Dunne and
stockpiling.
UKVIA. So yeah, anytime the government decides to drop the pants and take a crap on us all, we're basically going to drag John in kicking and screaming, because you did volunteer. So we're going to make use of that. We're going to make use of it. Anyway, that's it from us, folks. A massive thanks to Bunny and the Spanners in chat. A massive thanks to everyone on Facebook that popped in those questions. It made me be lazy for the past 2 hours because you all asked the questions I was going to ask anyway. Big thanks to John Dunne from UKVIA. Hopefully I'll see you in May. And a massive thanks to the wonderful co-hosts, Mr. Aidan from Little Bro Vape Reviews and Mr. Adam from What's That Behind You?
I'm going to go and have a fish finger sandwich, me, now.
Yeah, I fancy some fish fingers.
We will see you all next week, folks. That's it from us. Hopefully we'll see you in the after show in about 5 to 10 minutes. Bye!
Fizz flaps.
Fizz flaps.